Well, welcome to this video. The aim of this is to go through your travel and tourism mock and give you feedback. It's worth thinking about how to use this video first of all. Rather than watch the whole video, that's, to be honest, be pointless. What you need to do is actually use it to go through each question, question by question. So what we suggest you do is you start by actually looking at each answer. Okay, and before you even start the video, try to identify the reason why you've dropped marks. Once you've done that, if you can't identify the reason, then listen to the video. Okay, so the video is there to look at those questions which you haven't got full marks on, and you can't see where you've gone wrong. If you have got full marks, or you can see where you've gone wrong, then skip that bit and go to the next question. When you have identified the question, you've listened to the video, you thought, right, okay, that's fine. Now your next job is to pause the video. Once you've paused it, okay, think about how you're going to answer the question, replay it if you need to, okay, and then once you're clear in your head how you're going to improve the answer, then use your red pen to improve it. Once you've improved that question, then before you play the video, look at the next question, see if you've got full marks on that one, see if you understand what you've done, and then repeat the process. So let's get started. Okay, now the way I've set this up is on the left-hand side, okay, you will see the questions, the same as what you've got in your mark book. On the right-hand side, you'll actually see the answers. So we'll go through them each term. So which of the following is an economic factor influencing global travel and tourism? Now, economic means money and jobs. So if we have a look through here, starting from the bottom, traffic congestion, that's kind of environmental, media, well, that's the media. Planning laws is about laws. Level of employment, okay, is basically a economic factor. So that's going to be the right answer. The real weather events can affect some global destinations. One example is a wildfire. Give another example of a severe weather event. Now, basically, anything from this list over here is worth a mark. You only need to write the word down. What you mustn't do, okay, is actually say wildfires or forest fires because it's actually mentioned in the question. So again, most of you got that right. It should be fairly straightforward. Okay, going on to 2B. Explain one way, and again, the important bit here is one way. If you write two different ways, only one of them is going to count. But a wildfire could affect, now this is another important bit, travel and tourism organisations. It's the organisations, not the tourists. Now, it's a 2-mark question. So what that means is that you get 1 mark for the reason and 1 mark for explanation. So, for example, okay, hotels may be in danger or are damaged. Okay, you're going to get 1 mark for that, and then 1 mark for explaining why that's a problem. So, for example, they may have to evacuate guests, they may have to close down, they're not able to earn as much money. Okay, it could be you talk about airports. So the smoke is near the airports, which means they can't fly, okay, because it's dangerous. So again, 1 mark for the reason, 1 mark for the explanation. What you don't want is multiple reasons for this one. Okay, so that's question 2B. Let's move on. Okay, question 3. Now, again, it's worth reading the question and making sure you understand it. So it says a recession. So a recession is when a country's economy is going backwards. The country is basically getting poorer. So a recession, the country getting poorer, is one factor that can influence travel and tourism organisations. Chianti Travel is a UK tour operator offering package holidays to destinations in Europe. Describe 2 ways that Chianti Travel could respond to the recession. So it's asking you, what could they do if people have got less money? Now, importantly, look down here, it's 4 marks. And again, make sure you're clear, it's looking for 2 ways. So just like the last question, it's going to be a way and the reason why that's good, or a bit more development, and a second way and a second bit of development. So again, have a look over here. What could you do? Well, maybe, okay, you could have new products, new holidays, new places to go to. If you're going to do that, okay, because people are getting poorer, then actually maybe you want to actually make them cheaper. So maybe there'll be sort of short breaks. You might think about where those holidays are. Okay, and so you review where those holidays are, and instead of going to Europe, which again the clue is up here, you actually go to the UK. Okay, it might be you create special offers, okay, such as discounts, so that people will who perhaps have less money can afford it. It might be you offer all-inclusive holidays, so that it limits the amount of money spent, making it cheaper for people going there. So it doesn't matter what you say, as long as you've got one idea developed and a second one developed. Okay, so stop the video here if you didn't get that. Many of you didn't. Use the answers there, put your answers down. Okay, question 4. Now this is looking at sustainable tourism. Okay, and really, first question specifically asks you what is meant by the term sustainable tourism. Now the question says describe, so you don't have to give an exact definition. Okay, so personally, I would use the definition that it's tourism that meets the needs of today without harming the ability of future generation. But that's really quite waffly. What you can do is you can use the answers over here. So what they're looking for are 2 of these types of things. So it's low impact tourism. Tourism that does little damage to the environment. It's tourism that protects the environment. Yeah, but not just environment. It could be nature, it could be culture, it could be heritage. This is the bit I was talking about, meeting the needs of present generations. Okay, so it's about meeting the needs of those people today. It's about meeting the needs of the locals, but it's also about protecting the future for future generations. So again, use that mark scheme, write your 2 points down. Again, you don't need to write an essay here, but you do need to have sort of those 2 of those points. Now, B is talking about a voluntary organisation, like a charity or something like that. Think of sort of Friends for the Earth or something like that. Now, they, okay, are trying to promote sustainable tourism. They're trying to do this bit over here, if you like. Okay, this low impact tourism, they're protecting it. Now, probably building a new runway is not going to be good for the environment. So when we're talking about responding, what we want them to do, or what they're going to try and do, is try and stop the actual runway or make it as less damaging as possible. So how could they do that? Well, they could try and get the government involved. So they could campaign to get the government involved, 1 mark, and then, okay, why would you do that? Well, it could be to stop the runway, or it could be to reduce the impact it has on local people. So, for example, perhaps stopping flights at night. They could raise money, okay, fundraising. They could do that to actually create protected areas in the local environment, you know, to actually protect the wildlife. Or the other thing that charities do is they could try and raise awareness to get supporters to back the cause. Now, again, in each case, okay, it's 1 point. You know, they could campaign to the government, and then so that, and then explain what it is. So the government bans or stops the runway, or the government puts conditions in to reduce the impact on local people. So again, difficult one that. You may want to stop the video at this point and have a go, okay, at seeing if you can get that question right now. So we're on to question 5 now. And again, this is going from into a new topic. This is talking about safety and security. Right, so the first one, nice and easy, asks you to give 2 safety and security measures, okay, that are used in airports. And most of you did fairly well on this. And basically, any of these 2, any 2 of those will do. Would also include any other sensible sort of solutions. Trying to think what might be included in there. To be honest, I've got most of what you could have there. Shouldn't really include things like seat belts and things like that, but I would accept sort of instructions in the airport and things like that, and guidance, and it could even be fire escapes and things like that. Now, if you're doing those things, it's going to affect passengers using the terminals. Okay, now affect means it's going to sort of change their experience. Now that could be negative. And if you look down here, again, okay, what's interesting about this, okay, is that this is 2 marks, but this, sorry, two ways, but it's 6 marks. What that means, okay, is that we need, sorry, I take that back, it's 4 marks. What that means is, similar as the other points we've had, 1 point, 1 explanation, 1 point, 1 explanation. Now, as I said, it could be that it's negative. It could cause inconvenience. 1 point. What you have to do is explain why. So, for example, people have to throw away their liquids. It could be that actually it makes passengers feel safe. 1 point. But then you have to explain why. Because there are multiple checks in place, or because people feel less likely for a terrorist to get on board. It could be, again, they just simply cause delays. 1 mark, okay, because of the additional time needed. Okay, and in an extreme case, it could even mean that flights are missed. But basically, get used to this technique, get used to this structure of this is the point, this is why it's important, or this is what will happen. So again, stop the video here if you can get 4 marks on these. Okay, have a go at them, and then when you're ready, press play. Okay, so this is question 6. Starts off with a bit of maths. So if we have a look at the question, it says political factors and destinations will influence travel and tourism organisations. One political factor is the introduction of taxes. The following table shows a tourist tax in Greece. Okay, and in January, they introduced a new tax to tourists staying in villas, hotels, etc. Use information in the answers below. For a family staying in a 3-star villa, how much will the family pay in tourist tax? And again, it is really just asking you to look at the table. There's villa, there's 3 stars, and there's the answer, 0, 50. And if we look over here, okay, you'll see that's right. Yeah, I think pretty much everyone got that one right, so we'll skip quickly. The next one, though, okay, is talking about the role, okay, of governments in sort of developing tourist destination. And it says one role of governments in some global destinations to manage tourism through taxes, rules, and legislation. Now that's really important. The trouble is many of you missed this bit, and it's so important. Okay, let's put that in red. The reason I'm highlighting that is because if you don't pay attention to that, you're about to make a mistake in the next one. Because the next question says give 3 other roles. So if you use taxes, rules, or legislation is basically laws, you're going to get it wrong, okay? Because you're not going to be using other ways. And actually that's quite tricky. It makes it quite a hard question. What you need to do then is have a think about how governments actually do things that doesn't involve making laws or charging. So it could be visas. We know some countries you have to have a bit of paper that says you can go there. That wouldn't be a tax or a rule or legislation. It could be security measures, okay, about providing a safe place, about the police, about making sure that there's not a threat of terrorism. It could be about the quality of the airports or the sort of transport links, about providing trains, roads, etc. It could be about sort of the water management, electricity, water supplies. Okay, it could be about encouraging outside investment, other firms, other companies, or other countries to do that. It could be about communication, about providing the internet, for example. They could provide money to companies to actually go there. Or they could try and be protecting the environment and ensuring sustainable development. So any of those gets you a mark. But for this one, it isn't necessarily a hard question. The hard bit is reading that bit about taxes, rules, and legislation. Understanding means you can't talk about laws and taxes and think what else there is. Okay, and that's really what you've got to be careful with that question. So again, stop. If you didn't get right, have a look at the answers and then have a go answering them. Okay, so now we're on to question 6. This is where we start getting to the bit of the exam where they're starting to give you case studies and they are starting to sort of ask more extended questions. So this one's looking at Corfu, and it's worth having a look up here and just quickly reading this information here and seeing if there's anything important, because there'll be clues in this information we can use. So some results are very busy in the holidays. Okay, that's worth knowing. They attract younger couples, families and groups. There are some quieter results with less crowded beaches. There's been an increase in popularity of all-inclusive hotels, and activities now include sailing, horse riding and a golf course. Okay, so I've gone through and I've just underlined the information as I've read it. I haven't even looked at the questions yet. So let's have a look at the questions and see if there's anything interesting sort of there or what I need to think about. So the Tourist Board, for promoting it, is considering the following 2 aims. To stop hotels being all-inclusive, okay, and to encourage tourists to visit in the quieter months. So it comes back to that wanting them to come in outside of July and August. Now, it then says explain 3 ways that these aims would help manage negative economic impacts. Now, a couple of really important things about this. 3 ways, 6 marks, so it's going to be that old favourite thing of ours, 1 mark for the reason, 1 mark for the explanation. And it has to be negative economic impact. You can't tell me why all-inclusives are good or anything like that. You've got to focus on why these things are going to help economically. The first thing to do is to start with all-inclusive. Now, all-inclusive is basically when hotels offer all the food, all the drink, all the activities included. So if you get rid of those, people will stop spending time in the hotels and go out more. So if you stop hotels being all-inclusive, okay, then if they're going outside, okay, local bars and restaurants will have more customers. Okay, 1 mark, and that will be because people will leave the all-inclusive hotels. That's 2 marks. Now, another term is this idea of leakage. Now, leakage isn't sort of like a leaky tap or something. When it's in this sense, it's talking about money, rather than flowing out of the tap or out of the bath or something that's leaking, it's money flowing out of the country. So what's happening is that people are spending all their money in these hotels. Well, those hotels are owned by British or American companies, and the money's going back to Britain and America. What they're saying is that it will stop that money being spent in the hotel, okay, and it will be spent in the local economy. Now that's great that we've got those 2 points, but actually one of the things about the questions is that we've got to consider both of these. If we don't consider both, the all-inclusive and getting the tourists to come during the quieter months, we ain't going to get full marks. So we need to think about why getting tourists out of the sort of peak season will be good. Well, the most obvious reason for that is that it will get rid of seasonal unemployment. If there's tourists all year round, there'll be jobs all round. So it'll get rid of seasonal unemployment because it will mean that there'll be a wider range of activities offered out the season. It means hotels won't shut during the summer, so that's going to be good. The other thing, okay, is that local businesses can benefit from it, okay, because there's going to be more money. Let's be honest, they're not going to be families with children, so they're likely to be. It means about more retired people visiting out of it, okay, and that means that because they're coming out of peak seasons, local businesses can earn money all year round. So again, it's quite a tough one, that. But again, if you think about this is the the reason, and this is why that reason is going to happen, and do that 3 times, you'll be absolutely fine. Okay. So now, similar sort of thing, we're looking at question 7. Again, same thing, you get given some information. It's worth just reading through it and having a look. So this is about Skye. Skye is an island in Scotland. Let's have a quick look what we can find out about it. So it's in Scotland, it's the most beautiful mountain ranges and coastlines. It's popular for its arts and crafts and culture, whiskey and traditional dancing. Its largest town, okay, had an increase of 5% of visitors. It's been used for films and TV shows. It's got narrow roads, but any way to get there, and there's evidently a problem with most visitors travel by car. So before I've even looked at the questions, I've gone through and I've just picked out the key bits. Okay, so let's have a look. So this is about impacts, and it's about possible social impacts. Again, this one says give 2 positive social impacts. Okay, and it's on the local community, so it can't be about the tourists, it's got to be about the locals. Now, the other thing that's important is that it's 2, and the question, okay, let me just change my colour, was give. Give means you don't have to explain. So we really are just after any improvements for the locals. We don't have to explain them. And that means it's quite easy. Have a look at this list here. You don't have to explain any of those. But if you say it's going to improve the quality of life for locals, great. If it's going to improve the facilities available, great. If it's going to improve the transport, brilliant. Okay, infrastructure just again could be transport, but it could also be things like internet connection. If it means improved cultural awareness, great. If it's about preserving local culture and traditions, maybe there'll be museums, again, that's going to get you a mark. Any 2 of those will get you the mark. If you've got other sensible answers, that can be worth a mark too. Now, having talked about the positive thing, this then asks you for negative impacts, okay, on the environment, and that's of increased visitor numbers. So this is more tourists are going to turn up. Why is it a problem? But there is a difference here to the last question. This is slightly harder. I want you to explain. Again, 4 marks. What that means is that you need to come up with a reason and explain it. So again, let's have a look at the mark scheme. Okay, with the mark scheme, the most obvious thing is that we know that tourists are coming by car, which means that there'll be increased car usage. If there's more cars, that's going to increase congestion. There'll be more tourists, okay? So there'll be increased visitor numbers. That means that there'll be, okay, more overcrowding, but there's probably also going to be more litter. There's going to be sort of more damage to the natural environment. There's probably going to be more tourist facilities need to be built, which is going to destroy habitats. And again, we've already mentioned cars, but more cars will mean more emissions, and that means more air and noise pollution. You need to pick 2 of those, and you need to explain them. Now, coming on to question 7C, this is about partnerships. Something we weren't brilliant at, so it might well be worth something we need to revise for. If we have a look, again, read the information, get your highlighter out. Okay, it's being built between the developers, and they are working in partnership with the local government. Well, the developers are private, okay, that means like just a normal company that wants to earn money, and the government is the public sector. So we can see the answer to that is C. Now, when we come on to 7D, it's talking about managing the effects. And basically what it wants you to do is come up with a way that you could sort out noise pollution and then explain it, and then do the same for loss of culture. So noise pollution, okay, now bearing in mind that the hotel is being built, okay, you can actually think about during construction. So you could talk about during construction, only working during the day, for example, so that it didn't disturb local people. That'll get you 2 marks. You could use solar panels, for example, okay, rather than noisy diesel generators. You could avoid loud outdoor music or fireworks or sort of loud parties, okay, to avoid complaints from the locals. You could sound insulate it, anything like that. 1 mark for what you're going to do and 1 mark for how it works or why it would work. The loss of culture, okay, again, it could be that go back to what we talked about. We said it had famous for distilleries. So it could be that you actually take guests to the distilleries, to the local markets, for example, or whatever, to help preserve traditions. You could hold music and dance. Remember, there was a clue that this was famous for its dance, okay, to promote culture. Okay, you could actually design the hotel to follow the local style so it blends in with the environment, okay, and helps preserve the culture. So again, well, the culture is a bit harder, but the same principle applies. 1 mark for the reason, 1 mark for why you're doing that. Okay, so again, have a look at that, see if you can improve it. Pause the video if you need to, and then we'll go on to the next question in a second. Okay, so now we're on to question 7e, and we're starting now to get to sort of mini essay type questions. So this one is talking about what the local government's planning to do. It's planning to build car parks near the major field locations with no parking charges, and it's going to charge £2 to cross the only bridge linking the island to the mainland. Okay, so you've got 2 proposals, okay, and you've been able to discuss the possible effects these proposals may have on managing tourism, and it's 6 marks. So you should be using the idea that basically 1 mark for a point, 1 mark for explaining something. So we need to have 3 points, 3 explanations, and there needs to be, and that's really a minimum, and there needs to be, okay, there needs to be factors talking about the car parks and factors about the charge on the bricks. Now, the effects can be positive or negative. So if we have a look over here, let me just go over here, you can take the car parks, for example. You can say that car parks, will spoil the scenery. I doubt you're ever going to write in a Valentine's card, your eyes are as pretty as the local car park. They're not going to generate any income. So they're going to cost money to build, but they won't generate any income. You're going to have to maintain them. It's going to cost more money. Okay. But, okay, there are some positives. Okay. Those positives are that people are going to stop parking on the grass, so there's going to be less erosion. Presumably it's going to increase congestion, reduce congestion, it's going to increase access, there's going to be less cars on the roads. One advantage is that it will put people into honeypot sites, and that means that all going to 1 or 2 places, you can actually manage those places better. And more tourists, okay, probably means more money, so that's got to be an advantage. So you probably only need 2 or 3 of those things about car parks, okay, but you do need to have a couple, and you do need to explain them. In terms of the fee, okay, for the bridge, again, we can think negatives. Well, if less people come because they don't want to put the fee, then it's going to be less income, okay. If you've got to pay, you've got a queue, that's going to create a negative impression. Okay, you don't have to pay people to collect the money unless you don't have machines, so that may not be a profit. But on the positive side, if you do a good job, hopefully that's money that's going to be used to actually support the tourist industry. And if you're doing that, then you can invest in local paths and things like that to avoid some environmental problems, and it creates jobs. Again, you're probably 2 of those. Okay, it doesn't really matter too much about whether positive or negative, but you want a mixture. What you don't need is necessarily a conclusion, or you could include one if you wanted to. That probably, well, for you to decide whether you think economically or environmentally it'd be good or bad. But focus on getting the answers, the responses down, those reasons why, the effects, rather than conclusion. Conclusion is good, but not critical. Okay. Most of you wouldn't have got full marks on that, so if you want to stop the video there, okay, and then move on, you're welcome to. Right, well, for now we come to question 8, which is the final one. Again, this gave you information, a lot more information than the others. Let's have a quick scan through and see what the key information is. Well, Cuba is an exciting island in the Caribbean. It talks about the mountains, rainforests, waterfalls, wildlife, beautiful beaches. The local people are known for being welcoming, family focused. We might want to know about that in the future. Relaxing, traffic-free squares, lively bars. Then it talks about Veranda, or wherever that is, a 2-hour drive, a large resort with many international hotels, 12 miles of sandy beaches, range of water sports for all ages. So I'm actually quite jealous just reading about that. And then it goes on to talk about the growth of tourism. It's one of the main sources of revenue for the island. It needs 100,000 hotel rooms to be built by 2030 to estimated 10 million. Just look here. Okay, extra arrivals. And then over here it's got some advice. Medical facilities can be expensive. You need an insurance policy. The Zika virus, which is a virus spread by mosquitoes, exists. There's no recent history of terrorism, but it could happen. Driving standards are variable, okay, and the weather can be wet and windy from June to November. In fact, it's not unknown for it to be hit by hurricanes. Okay, so let's have a look at the questions. Okay, so question 8a is really talking about this advice here. So it's focusing you on that bit in particular. And it says, explain 2 reasons why FCOs, a Foreign Commonwealth Office, may affect people's decisions about whether to travel to Cuba. Now again, it's worth thinking about that word affect. Affect means positive or negative. So it could be more likely or less likely, or change how to do it. So if you go back over what we've read, well, basically you can use any of these bullet points here, to be honest. So it might be that they're put off because medical facilities are expensive and they need insurance, and that means that they have to pay more, so they're less likely to go. It could be, okay, that they're worried about safety because of terrorist attacks in the past, okay, or that there's a risk of them. It could be they're put off because of dangerous road conditions, which means that they're not prepared to drive around. If they were pregnant or wanted to have a child, okay, they'd be put off because of the risk to unborn babies from the Zika virus. It might be they're put off by the poor weather conditions, okay, and they're worried about the risk of being caught in a hurricane or flight delays. So any of those, okay, but again, it's 2 reasons, 4 marks. 1 for the reason, 1 for it, okay, and notice that it's that because, okay, or as many. There's that linking phrase when you look at the answers. Okay, if you didn't get 4 marks there, stop the video, okay, before you move on to the next one. Okay, now we go on to question B. Now, it talks about Cuba is an emerging tourist destination. Okay, you notice I put the same information here. I'm not going to go back through it. Now, emerging tourist destination basically means like a brand new one. It's got hardly any tourists. It's so lots of nature, lots of unspoiled wildlife. The locals haven't really geared up for tourism. Now, it says, discuss this statement. What that basically means, okay, is tell me how it's like an emerging destination and tell me why it's not like an emerging destination. So if we have a look down here, we'll see there are a number of reasons why it is an emerging destination. Okay, look at who it's actually, why people are going there. They're going there for the adventure, the nature, the wildlife. Okay, it has a rapid growth rate. Okay, and notice the best answers are going to use that 4%. They're going to use data there. It's got traditional lifestyles. Okay, it's got fairly poor transport links. So there's lots of things there which suggest that it is an emerging destination. However, there's also characteristics that suggest that, well, perhaps it's not an emerging, perhaps it's a mature destination. So, for example, it's already got international hotels and beach resorts. Okay, yeah, the developed infrastructure is not basic. It's got 4 million tourists, not exactly off the beaten track. Okay, if you think about the number of people there, there might be some conflict with locals. Again, typical of a mature destination. It's got a tourist board. Okay, it's aiming to develop awareness globally. These are all things that, if you think about it, sort of Blackpool or sort of Spain would be trying to do. These are typical mature destinations. So really, what you need to do is pick 2 or 3 from this list over here, and 2 or 3 from this list over here. Okay, and probably 2 paragraphs saying it. Again, the 6-mark question, conclusion is nice, but it's not essential. Okay, most people wouldn't have got 4 marks on this, so stop the video, have a think about how you can improve your answer. Okay, get your red pens out, and then when you're ready, just go on to the next question. Okay, so question 9 is again about partnership, and I think partnership, okay, I think is key. We didn't do very well on these questions. We perhaps need to have a look at it. So what partnership are we talking about? Well, we're talking about a UK tour operator that specialises in wedding packages, okay, and an airline, okay, Salsa Airlines, okay. So we have to explain the advantages of the partnership, and to be honest, a lot of mistakes people make, we're talking about the advantages to the customer. Really, they want to talk about advantages to the companies. So if we have a look over here, one of the big advantages of any type of partnership is often it shares cost. Okay, so that one advert can actually promote 2 companies, for example. Well, if you're paying less, that means you're going to increase your profits. Okay, one company might have a really skilled person in marketing, and the other person might have a really good skilled person in ICT. Well, what that means is that they can share their skills and experiences, okay, and if you can then explain, okay, why that's useful, that'll be good. Okay, so for example, the marketing skills in one company were used in the other, or the example of here's a bit more complicated. Salsa Airlines already has contacts in airport for ground handling, blah, blah, blah. The Salsa Airlines already have links in Cuba, which will be good for the Hitched International to use. It might raise their profile. Okay, so for example, if weddings are posted on social media, then people will see it, and that's going to be good for both companies. Salsa fly all through the year, which means that Hitched International can market it again all through the year extensively. I thought actually this is one of the hardest questions in the entire exam, so you probably want to stop at this point, have a think about how those 2 companies working together can help the companies. Okay, and then when you're happy, red pen it, and then move on to the next one. Now, the next question is talking about media publicity and image, okay, and is talking about severe weather conditions in Cuba, okay, and that some negative comments have been posted online. That people are saying that Cuba's horrible, it's too wet, it's miserable, you get hurricanes or whatever. And so this is asking you how Hitched International could respond to this publicly. So this is about what could they put out in the media, on Twitter or things like that, to try and reassure people. So for example, they could put a long-term weather forecast, okay, just saying that actually look, the next 10 weeks there's no hurricanes forecast or whatever, or anything like that, and that would reassure potential customers. Again, notice we're back to a 2-mark question, and it's explain. Okay, so what it's actually asking us to do is give us the reason, explain it. You could reply promptly to the tweets with alternative activities. Okay, saying, yeah, we're aware of this, but actually what we can do is we can actually do the wedding inside rather than outside, if that's the case. If you do that, that's about promoting good customer service. It could be you monitor the situation. Okay, you actually pay careful attention to the weather, and then if there is a risk of a hurricane, for example, you actually change the wedding to another resort appropriate, maybe a different island perhaps. Okay, but anything sensible about how you'd respond to someone being concerned about hurricanes like coming that way, okay, and how that might, or even if it's not true, they're just putting this down as on a post, will get you the marks as long as you've got a sensible reason and you explain it. Okay, and now we come on to the final question. And the final question is a big one. Okay, it's 9 marks long, so it's the longest question here. It's a bit similar to some of the 6-mark questions we've looked at. So, Hitch International has identified an opportunity to offer family holidays for friends and relatives attending weddings. You go into the wedding and you're going to go and do different things, okay, with your children and things like that. Right, evaluate the suitability of Cuba as a destination for families. So, how are you going to answer this? Basically, you're going to write 3 paragraphs. Your first paragraph is you're going to tell me why it's really good. Okay, let's do that in green. So I've done that for good. Your second paragraph is you're going to tell me why it's not so good. We'll do that in red. And your final paragraph, let's do just purple, is about the conclusion. So that's how you're going to structure it. Think of it as trying to get 3 or 4 marks in the first paragraph, 3 or 4 marks in the second paragraph, 1 or 2 marks in the conclusion. So what is it that's good about Cuba? Well, the great thing about this is you don't need to actually know about Cuba. All of the answers were in that page which we went through and we highlighted. So, for example, it mentioned water sports. Okay, well, that's going to be really good. And in fact, it says that water sports and activities are available for all ages. Well, that's going to be particularly good for children and older children. Okay, you imagine you've got teenagers, whatever, they're going to want to do surfing, water skiing, things like that. It talked about safe beaches. Okay, well, that's going to be particularly good for younger children. It talked about things to do. So, for example, classic car tours. It talked about safe traffic-free squares, particularly because you've got the young children running around. You've got the fact that children are welcomed by locals. Okay, you've got adventure activities. You can learn to dance, immerse yourself in local culture. So these are, you're really talking about activities that families and children can do. It talks about international hotels. Well, they're going to be of a decent standard, okay, and they will have clubs and activities for children already. So again, there's lots of advantages. You probably want to mention 3 or 4 of those if you can. But then we've got the disadvantages. Okay, we've already talked about the weather. Do you want to take your young children into a situation that has difficult weather, type hurricanes or whatever? Probably not. We know there's medical warnings. We know about the Zika, for example. So if you're a young mother or you're thinking about becoming pregnant, it's probably not the place you want to be. It talks a lot about nightlife. Well, that might be great for the adults, but probably not good if you've got a 5-year-old. It is a long, long way away. It's sort of hours and hours in the flight to get there. That's going to be difficult for young children. It's going to be expensive. Okay. Transport options are restricted. We've mentioned the idea of a terrorist attack. Okay. 2 hours by road to resorts. And again, there's concerns over driving standards. You really want to put your kids in a car on a road where actually things are going to be potentially dangerous. So 3 or 4 positives, 3 or 4 negatives, and then well, actually, what do you reckon? Would I want to take a 2-year-old there? I think maybe, but I think I would be worried. If I took my teenage kids there, I think they may actually quite like it. So actually, that would pretty much be my conclusion. Okay, it might be good for families who are adventurous. It's certainly not going to be good for families who just want to lie by a pool or whatever. But actually, younger children, particularly, perhaps families who think having more children, would be concerned about the Zika, might not want to go there. Right, well, that is it. Okay, we've looked at all of the questions. I hope this has been of use to you. Remember that you can use this for revision 2, so I'll make sure that this link is available for you nearer the exam. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I hope it's been of use. Thank you so much.